I'd like to pray with you. God, thank you for calling us. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for doing all you can that we might be with you now and for eternity. As a result of considering your word today and just this whole gathering, everything that's taken place, may we all walk out a little closer to you than when we first came in. Or a lot, or even a lot. Thank you, Lord. Amen. Has anybody here ever gone shopping? Can I see some hands? Okay. I was getting concerned there for a while. It looked like only maybe 4 or 5 people. Yeah, we've all had that experience. How many of you, when you have gone shopping, you have seen something like that? Yeah, crowded parking lot. And I don't know why, even sometimes the most able among us are looking for that really close up front place. What's with that? I don't know. We think it will save us time. It'll be just a short walk to the store and a short walk back, and we'll spend 5 or 10 minutes looking for that spot that'll make us about a half a minute closer. Anyway, I like and I miss Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey collected some of his stories in books. I have some of those books. One of them is For What It's Worth. You know, before I tell you this story, so this way you can have your mind on what we're saying and what we're doing. Yes, the pastor is wearing braces now, okay? Can we just get that out there? So, I don't want to see, he looks a little brighter. That's what I'd like you to be saying. Yes, I do. Okay. Well done with that, because otherwise I know you're going to be poking me. Do you see one? Yes, I do. Okay, that's out. Paul Harvey tells this story on page 1 of For What It's Worth. An older lady in Hershey, Pennsylvania, she went shopping. She got to that mall and she tried to park near the store she was going to go into, and this is what she discovered. Just a jammed parking lot. And she went up and down the rows looking for a spot, and she spent quite a bit of time doing this before she finally turned coming up an aisle towards her store, and she saw some guy had just stopped with a shopping cart loaded with stuff and had popped his trunk. And she, of course, thought, I'll wait. So she parked right there, and she pulled up a couple spaces away, actually put her car in park because the other gentleman was quite elderly too, and he wasn't exactly the speediest putting his stuff in there. She waited patiently. Finally, the gentleman had all the stuff in his trunk. He pushed the cart to where they have those little sections just for the cart, came back, got in his car, and as he was just about to pull away after backing out, she shifted into drive. But right then and there, just from the other side of her, came this speeding Corvette. Boom, it just zooms right by her and goes right into the spot, and there she is in her nice Mercedes, just in total shock. So she yells out her window on this nice summer day, "Hey, I've been waiting a long time for that spot." And the young man with the shiny Corvette, he just flashed a smile. And he said, "Hey, can't help it. That's how it is when you're young and fast." And he turned around, he kept walking towards the store, and suddenly he heard this nauseating crunch. He turned around to see that the back of his plastic Corvette was totally caved in the back. She had just shifted and drive and hit the gas. Wham! And he turned around. He was so upset. "Hey, lady, you can't do that!" And with a bit of sarcasm, she smiled back at him and said, "Well, that's how it is when you're old and rich." True story. What a true story. I ask the question, does it have to be this way? Where the young and the old, or the younger and the older, I prefer to say the young and younger now in this stage. But does it have to be this way? Do we even want it this way? To where there are these conflicts between the generations? Do the younger and older people each need to exert their strengths to battle each other in this world? Do the younger and the older need to exert their strengths to battle each other even in the church? Does God even want it this way? I mean, is this His plan? Of course not. There has got to be, there must be, there has to be a better way than having these generational issues. Now, I realize that in our Puyallup church, we don't have anything that comes close to what happened in that Hershey, Pennsylvania parking lot. But I always believe that we can do better than what we're doing now. Anybody else feel that way? I mentioned in the board meeting this week, Michelangelo's prayer. His constant prayer was, Lord, help me to always strive for more than I have attained. Help me to always strive for more than I have attained. Is that your prayer for yourself individually? I hope it is. Is that our prayer for our church collectively? I hope it is. That we may always strive for more than what we have achieved. On whatever good thing that may be. I'd like to consider how those in the older category often forget what things were like when they were younger. Over time, we sometimes forget. And there are things we can relate to, be it elementary school, a teen, a high schooler, college student. And then, of course, those in the younger category often forget that the, quote, older were once young. And they have, just by the very ticking of the clock, the turning of the calendar pages, a little more experience. The youth look at the elderly and shake their heads sometimes. The young look at the elderly, shake their heads sometimes. If the truth be told, I think God sometimes looks at all of us and He's shaking His head. What can we learn about this diversity of age and this accompanying diversity of perspective from the story of Jesus' birth? Can we talk about Jesus' birth in the month of May? Is that okay? It's not relegated to December? Cool. Because if there's any point to what I'm about to share, it's that I believe in looking at how God orchestrated both young and old to herald His first coming. We will learn a lesson as to how He wants to use young and old to herald His second coming. That's my presupposition. That's my point that I believe is biblical. So let's look back there in time. Let's look at Elizabeth. Remember Elizabeth? She was well past normal childbearing years when she became the mother of who? Yes, John the Baptist. I always like to tell my Baptist friends, he wasn't really a Baptist. It should be John the Baptizer. But anyway. Her husband was probably between 60 and 70 years old, while she was probably between 50 and 60 years old. That's Elizabeth. What about Mary? We've got Elizabeth on the one hand. What about the other female who plays a pretty significant role in the birth of Jesus? What was her name?
Mary.
Yeah, Mary. Mary's about what? Do you know?
Young.
Yeah, young. Very good. You're right. You're absolutely right. Many scholars put her at about 17. She could have even been a little younger than that. Pretty amazing. Of course, that's based on two bits of evidence. One in the Bible, one in history. That term, virgin, really in the original Hebrew, it means maiden. or even in the Greek from which we get the New Testament, it means maiden. Heavy implications, not only for being youthful, but not engaging in physical intimacy, let's put it that way, for all the people in my audience today. In fact, it's used as maiden or young lady in other sections of the Bible. In our country, in our generation, we use it to mean something different. And there is that implication, but that is more of an American mindset. But certainly, we would admit as believers that we believe, yeah, she did not have any physical intimacy. That's the point. So even our English meaning for that word fits. Secondly, it was very common in Jesus' day for a girl of 15, 16, 17 years old to marry. And to marry a guy that we would think of as considerably older. So that fits as well. So in the story of Jesus' birth, we have these two diverse age groups that are playing major roles. Major roles. While their ages, I would concede, are quite different, they definitely have similarities. I like to look at a few of the similarities. Number one, they both experience miraculous births. To have a postmenopausal child, and to have a child without ever having physical intimacy, are both incredibly miraculous. They certainly share that in common. Both have husbands who are wrestling with this. You remember Zechariah, Elizabeth's husband, was in the temple at the time he was told by an angel. I don't know, if I was the angel, I'd have kind of slapped him on the back and said, "Hey dude, you're going to have a kid." Angel probably was a little more formal than that. Told him that he was, yes, going to be a father in his old age, and he had a struggle with that. He said, "How can this be? I am an old man, and my wife..." And then I don't know if it was because he thought she was overhearing, or might overhear, he said something like, "is up in years." Political correctness didn't start in our generation. He wrestled with it. Do you think Joseph wrestled with the news Mary tells him? Oh man. Joseph doesn't get very much airtime about this birth thing, but think of this poor man. You're what? You're what? Who is it? What have you been doing? I mean, there had to be some of that going on. And yet you see a man who loves God, who believes in God, and by the grace of the Holy Spirit, he processes this, and God gives him specific directions, praise the Lord, to help him not wrestle too long with this startling news. Of course, they both play major roles in one of the most significant events in the whole universe, definitely one of the most significant events in the whole universe. Those are similarities. But I want to look at these character traits that have allowed them, that God saw in them, that allowed him to pick them for these major roles that they play. And we're first going to look at Elizabeth, the older lady. Let's look at character trait number one, faith. We read in Luke 1:25, when she was told this news, what does she say? "Thus the Lord has dealt with me." See? The Lord has dealt with her. Her faith was focused on God. He is the one doing this. I have faith in him. He's the one. This is a miracle. She believed that God could grant her a child, even in her later years, though this was, humanly speaking, physically impossible. That same verse tells us about also her submission to God. The Lord has dealt with me. She's submitting to God. The Bible doesn't say Elizabeth was looking forward to bearing a child. She may have enjoyed her later years, right? Thinking, okay, I'm just going to cruise on by. I'm going to enjoy these later years. I don't have to change diapers. I don't have to hear a whiny kid. I don't have to get up in the middle of the night. This is cool. Maybe she finally settled into that. But she accepted God's will. I think of the whole faith thing. Do some of us limit God's ability to work in us or through us because of our perception of our age and our lack of faith? Think about that. She had faith in God. Even in her later years, she could have a child. So many times I've heard somebody say, well, I can't do that. I'm this old, be it young or old. Now, sure, there's some legitimate things to that. We could be a little too young or a little too old to do certain things. But I'm afraid we use that terminology, that phraseology, those words, more than they should be used. In other words, I think we have self-imposed limitations. Sometimes we lack the faith to believe God can do this through us, whether we are this age or that age or another age. I get that lesson out of that. Submission to God. Do we wrestle with that sometimes? We write our own script for life, and God comes in and submits His script, and it takes submission to go along with the latter. He calls us to accept His best for us. And finally, I see a third trait here. I would call it humility. Luke chapter 1, 42 to 45. In a loud voice, she explained, this is Elizabeth, when Mary comes to see her, blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you bear. She had just heard from Mary's lips that she's going to be the mother of the long-awaited Messiah. Something that probably most Jewish women of that time would have liked to have been. And now it's Mary, this young lady, 15, 16, 17 years old, telling Elizabeth, the older lady, whose husband is a priest. And yet these are the words. But why am I so favored that the mother of my Lord should come to me? She could be saying, hey, why did I miss out and you get this? I'm the one with the experience. I'm the one with the husband who's a priest. I'm the one who's been faithful to God for longer than you. And yet she considers herself favored simply because the mother of the Messiah is visiting her. Wow. Humility? Here, Elizabeth, hearing Mary's announcement, is rejoicing over the other woman's higher calling. Wow. There's not even the slightest hint of bitterness or jealousy. We don't hear anything like, why did he pick you over me? But in fact, we even see more humility because she allows Mary to come and to stay with her through the pregnancy. Wow. Elizabeth is 6 months along, and now Mary, newly pregnant, is going to take care of her. That's humility, folks, on the part of that older person. Let that younger person step in and take care of me. How about us when the younger among us show that they have equal or more knowledge, or more talent, or more creativity, or other such trait in an area? Or how do you handle a younger person when they're in a position of authority over us? Do we have enough faith in God, the first trait? Do we have enough submission to God, the second trait, to exercise humility when He may associate us with young people that He wants to use in great ways, maybe even seemingly greater ways than He wants to use us? Interesting. Well, let's go to that other lady, Mary. I would offer to you that we see the same three traits. There's probably 4, 10, 12, I don't know. I didn't want to keep you here till 3 o'clock. So we'll look at those three again. The first trait of faith. When she's first given this news by the angel, she says, how can this be since I do not know a man? This one already on? Can all hear me okay? Okay. Now you get the secret of how that's what Mike does. Okay. Mary. How can this be since I do not know a man? I believe her statement is more of a desire to know God's method rather than doubt. I think that there's at least that door open. She's not so much saying, well, this can't be. She's saying, I can't figure out why. I'd like to know. Haven't you ever thought of that? I could see that happening. I just would like to know how, Youth can be used of God in great ways. What's needed is not this sense of, I can do it on my own. I know I have wrestled with that. I distinctly remember one time heading off to work. Somehow I had come home late from school, freshman in college, came home late, and flew into the house. I was living with my folks at the time. There's a story behind why that. I was just helping them out. And, no, seriously, man, come on. And so I flew in. My mom was there, good, doting Italian mom. And she sees I'm in a hurry. And she says, do you want me to pack a lunch for you? And I said, no, that's okay. I can do it, what? On my own. I'm 21, Mom. I can take care of myself, okay? Now, what was I at the time? 19. Jamie crickets, and I'm upstairs, quickly out of the school clothes, into the work clothes. Come flying down the stairs. Totally forget about making something to eat at work at night. Run outside, jump into my blue, cool 70 Firebird. And as I get it in reverse to back out of the driveway, I see this very familiar-looking lady jutting out from the side door that went into the driveway. Screen door's open, and here is this woman holding this bag saying, Mom, I'm 19, Mom. I can do it on my own, Mom. Any of you have a mom like that? She took too much delight in that. What's needed by the youth is not this sense of I can do it on my own, but I can do great things because God's at work in my life. Second trait, oh yes, what was it? Submission to God. Behold the maidservant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. She tells the angel. According to your word. We see her resolve to allow God to do what He wants with her life. Right? She's submitting. While being the mother of the Messiah was an honor. Man, what an incredible duty. Hardship. Responsibility like we could hardly imagine. Think about that. Yet her answer is, let it be. God may call us to tasks that seem too high for us. Sometimes His will for our lives may appear impossible for us to reach. But we're called to submit to Him in faith. Not with faith in our ability, but with faith in His ability. All we have is availability. He has the ability. Right? That's all He's asking for is our availability. You've heard that. Submit in faith, knowing His will for our lives is what's best, not our own selfish plans. Third trait, what was it that Elizabeth showed? Humility, right? We see it again in Mary. I mean, you read it in that whole, we call it the Magnificat, right? She is praising God, saying, how could it be happening to me? Basically, that's the summary. It's a praise of God, not a praise of self. It's not this, ha-ha, I was picked over you. I was picked over the rest of the ladies. No. No, she is humble about this. She seeks out Elizabeth immediately to help her as a servant. Though Mary now knows that she herself is carrying this long-awaited Messiah. Wow, humility. What's a lesson there? We're to rely on the experience, the wisdom, and devotion to God that those older than us have. Can you catch that? As much as God may call youth to work great things for Him, He wants youth to have guidance and encouragement through the elders in the church. Wow. What incredible traits. If they're really traits for us to reflect, for us to show in our own life, for us to have displayed through our words and actions, then they need to show up in Jesus' life. Are these same traits in Jesus' life? Yeah, pick a scene, any scene of His life. What scene in Jesus' life doesn't show one or more of these traits? What do we want to look at? God becoming a little boy? Entering the world like everybody else? I mean, why not enter as this majestic divine being? That's who He is. But no, He comes through the same literal channel as all of us. And He learns about God at His mother's knee, learns scriptures, learns praise songs, learns that He is the Messiah, and He keeps submitting to that. 12 years old, He's in the temple, not being a show-off, but asking questions of these elders. Questions that would actually help them as they contemplate them. Works in a carpenter's shop? That wasn't a prestigious occupation. But there he is. He's submitting to the Father's will. He's being humble. He's showing his connection to humanity. He's a blue-collar worker. He knows what work ethic is. He sees his disciples bickering. Even after months and months and months of being with him, they still don't get the point. Oh, if only they had been more like me. That was tongue-in-cheek. Tongue-in-cheek. Because we sometimes still don't get it after years and years. But he sees them bickering over who's the greatest. They all acknowledge him as the greatest among them. But between themselves, they have their own little pecking order. And what does he do? He takes off his outer garment, bends down, and washes their feet, all of their feet, including Judas, including Peter, being humble enough to be a servant. And of course, boy, do we not see this in the whole cross scene? He is exercising faith that his sacrifice will accomplish something good, even though he feels total despair. Like we don't even have an English word. Our word excruciating comes from the Latin cruxus, cross. But he exercises faith. He hangs on by faith to God when it seems like God is not hanging on to him, but rather has abandoned him. He is still submissive to the Father's will. And he's still humble enough to stay up on that cross and accomplish our salvation. Boy, I want to pause here right now. If any of you who are claiming to be believers haven't contemplated the cross lately, and I mean for a good portion of time, not a passing thought, please do. Don't let sundown happen today without doing that. Stare good and long and realize that God is taking all the guilt of all of your wrongs and my wrongs upon himself so that he could give us the reward of his record of a perfect life in exchange. And if you've never ever contemplated it, then again, don't let the sun go down without doing it. That's what this is all about. I believe a Christless sermon is an empty sermon. Every truth really emanates from this incredible event in the universe. Certainly he was humble there as well. What an incredible God we have. And because of the example we see in Elizabeth and Mary, because of the example of Jesus Christ, and because of his strength, things don't have to be the way we see them in that initial story we told, right? Life inside the church, even outside the church, doesn't have to look like life between that young man and that older woman in the parking lot. No. It doesn't have to be that way. We really don't want it to be that way. God doesn't want it that way. There really is a better way. I want to ask Skip to come up now, because we have a special focus coming up, and we all need to hear this. How it's very inclusive and how yet there's a specific directive to this. And it might seem like it's way in the future, but you know, those dates fly past quite quickly. So we need to start thinking about it now. Skip, tell us a little bit more.
Well, you already told you who I am. I'm Skip McClanahan. Most of us have heard the statement that there's only one thing we can take to heaven with us. What's that? Our character. But every parent here also wants to take our kids, right? That's exactly right. There's a soft spot in our hearts for our kids, right? Doesn't matter how old you are, how old you are. You know, we're having a special anniversary coming up September the 25th. And it's going to be a homecoming kind of a thing. And a group of us have gotten together and been contemplating that. And as you think about it, it doesn't matter whether your child is a baby in arms or a teenager. Well, we might think twice about the teenager part, right? Do we really want teenagers in heaven? Well, yes, we do. I'm just kidding. Or a young adult, or whether you're 30, 40, or 50, or 60, I'm still a son to my mother. So that whole age bracket. But we want to focus on the 18-year-old to 30-year-olds. And we want to focus on every young person that's walked through the doors of the Nelson Kramer School. And every young person that's walked through the doors of our Puyallup Church. And so we're going to listen. You're supporting this because we need names and addresses of your children, of your young adults, ages 18 to 30. And if you know anybody else who's walked through the doors of our church or school that we may not know, we want their name and address on a sheet of paper. And what we're going to do is this. We have somebody in our church we've asked to be pretty creative. We want to put their name someplace along the walls here, because in the month of September and before that, we want to emphasize to our church and to this age bracket, we're going to send them at least 3 times. We're going to contact them. We're going to have a special letter that's written out, and we want to know that their church family here in the Puyallup Church has not forgotten them, wherever they're at. We want them to know that we are specifically praying for them. And I talked to one person, I don't think who it was, but I had the same reaction as I talked to another one. And she said, if I think you're praying for me, then I think there's something, you're praying because there's something wrong with me. And I said, whoa. I said, we need a series. So there's your next series.
There you go.
On what prayer is all about. Because I hope that when somebody calls me on the phone, they say, I want you to know I'm praying for you. It doesn't mean they think they know something bad about me. They're lifting me up before the Lord, right? Is that a good or bad thing? It's a good thing. And so in this letter, we want to emphasize to them that what we're going to pray specifically is that God will richly bless them in the year 2010 and 2011. We want to lay that right out real front and special for them. To let them know that that's what we're praying for. That God would present himself in their lives in a very specific way. The second thing we want to do is send them a DVD. And so if any of you, what we want to do on the DVD is have maybe 4 or 5 spots that they can click on. One that will touch a spiritual chord in their life. Now we recognize we have a small problem. And our problem is the generation thing that you've been talking about. Rebecca, I just share some with you. One of our members was Warren, actually. He said, I got the perfect thing. So he shows us this lady that's doing this rap, and I showed it to my son, who's in that age bracket, and my son is saying, that isn't it. So we have a generation problem. So we start thinking about it now. What are we trying to reach in this 18 to 30-year-olds? Well, we have singles. We have newly marrieds. We have some that have been married and have children already. And knowing that, we have some who are very spiritually committed, right? We have some who are lukewarm. We have some who are kind of indifferent. And we probably have some who are maybe even, dare I say, hostile towards spiritual things. So we have an interesting audience out there to reach, don't we? So with this DVD, and Jerry came up with the idea, because you can do that, you put it in the DVD and you can click on whatever you want. So if we have 4, 5, 6 different messages, hopefully we'll be able to reach with one of those messages, touch a spiritual chord in their life that, just what the song said, God wants them to come back home, no matter where they're at. Whether they have a strong commitment to Jesus at this time, or whether they don't. That somehow we might be able to strike a spiritual chord. And then we're going to send out a third letter, hopefully. Have a little preparation on the card itself. And that you yourself can put your own spiritual, personal note on there. And we have a creative person right now, and if you have some ideas, because we want to put all the names of the 18 and 30-year-olds someplace here in this area. So when we come in every Sabbath, we'll see their names. And we were thinking about putting them in triplicates. Triplicates. Now, why triplicates? Why triplicates? Not just that you remember, so you can take one with their address and mail out a special note to them. Maybe you see a nephew. Maybe you see somebody up there that you remember that they went to Nelson Crane. Maybe they aren't part of your family as blood relatives, but they're part of the church family. You say, I remember that person. And you want to send them a card. We want to hit these people, touch their people's lives with more than just once. Hopefully, we're interact with different people. We want to get our small groups involved and give them names that they can write cards and say, we are personally praying for this whole group and you, that God will richly bless you in this coming year. Now, we want to get all of you involved. And we know that all of you that have parents have kids besides 18 to 30-year-olds. So we're thinking about getting a book. And infants through 17, you'll write their names in that book. And then the 18 to 30s will write their names in that section. And then from 30 on up, we'll write their names too. That's you too, Lord. You too. Your name will be there because you're a son of someone. Write all their names, and we'll be praying over everybody too. But we're going to focus on that 18 to 30-year-old bracket. And we want to be praying and inviting them to come to homecoming here at the Puyallup Church. And we are praying that maybe there's some out there we know that aren't going to church that have been here before, that need to be reconnected with who Pastor Mike just talked about, our Savior, our Lord, and our King. And so we need your help in that. That's why you have this here. We're going to be putting in there. So we want you to be writing down if you have a son or daughter. Even if you are new to us and your son or daughter has not walked through the doors of this church or school, they're still part of our family. So if you're new to us and have an 18 to 30-year-old, we want their names on there. And we're going to be sending those things. And hopefully as we gather together, and if you have, we're talking to a wide variety of people over here. A lot of you are on the internet doing things. If you know of a segment, a 1 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute segment that might reach out and grab somebody, be thought-provoking in a spiritual way, we want you to share that with us. And Tracy Blue is working hand in hand with us. She's going to have the school working hand in hand with us. in praying for these kids. We have to come up with some creative ideas. If you have some creative idea that you think that might work, contact him. As a matter of fact, we're very fortunate. Tracy Ballou happens to be the daughter of Des Cummings Jr. How many know Des Cummings Jr.? He was the youth ministry professor at Andrew University when I was there. You know what kind of energy that Tracy has and spirituality? She came by that naturally through her father. So you don't want to miss the next Sabbath either, because he's going to be here the first Sabbath in October, and he's going to present something to us. He's an energetic, spiritual person. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss it. So we have some things that are going on that's going to be exciting for our church and our church family, and we want all of you to be involved. Because if you're a parent, you have a child, right? And if you're not a parent, you're probably an aunt or uncle, right? So not only can we take our character with us, by God's grace and Holy Spirit, we can take who else with us? Our kids.
Thank you, Skip. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for that emphasis. Again, it's going to be a homecoming for anybody who's been here, whatever age, but a very intentional focus on that particular age group. In fact, that one picture in this slide, the picture there on your left or right, there was a youth group that went to a senior home to teach the seniors, I think there were about 30 of these kids, to teach them how to use a computer, some basic word processing, internet surfing and such. And the kids and the older generation were both surprised at how much fun they had together. It's an amazing thing. Anybody ever hear of Babe Ruth? I just want to end with a story. Babe Ruth. Ever hearing about Babe Ruth? By the time this story... No, not the cannonball. I've always got to be one in every crowd, right? By this time in his life, Babe Ruth had already hit 714 home runs. This particular game was one of his last full games. The Braves were playing the Cincinnati Reds. The great Babe Ruth was no longer as agile as he once was. His abilities had waned. As a matter of fact, in this particular baseball game, he fumbled the ball more than once. He threw wrongly more than once. And he personally was responsible for most of the Cincinnati Reds' 5 runs. After the third out, Babe Ruth, who had already been heckled all throughout the game, started leaving his position to go to the dugout. And even more booing and hollering and sarcasm was coming his direction. And he just walked very dejectedly with his head down towards his dugout. When all of a sudden, without any warning, a boy in that stadium jumped out of the stands and came running towards one of his heroes, Babe Ruth. And ran right, Ruth saw him coming and stopped short of the dugout, and right there that little boy wrapped his arms around Babe Ruth's legs as he was crying. Babe Ruth paused, reached down, and he picked up that boy and gave him a big old hug. And they just stayed there on the field for several seconds hugging. There was no more booing, there was no more heckling. Everybody was in stunned silence at that time. You could imagine. In those brief moments, everybody saw 2 winners right there. One was Ruth, who in spite of his very dismal play on that day, took the time to take a little boy in his arms and acknowledge his love. And of course, the little boy, who no matter how many people were booing his hero, still saw his life as a whole, still saw that he was much more than just a guy who was having a bad day that day. A boy who cared about the feelings of another human being. And that scene certainly melted that crowd. I believe God is calling his followers, both young and old, to recognize the best in each other and nurture each other. It's not, well, the old people, they don't get it, they're all set in their ways. Oh, these young people, they don't have experience, they just have all this energy, they don't really know how to use it. No. It's both groups recognizing the best in one another and acknowledging that it's God's design. That prophecy in Joel is about the end times, and he says, what? Your young men will dream dreams. Your young people will dream dreams. Your older people will have visions. I equate that as we get older, yes, we're not as agile. We sometimes lose a bit of creativity, lose some energy, but we still see things that we want to see accomplished, and they are visions for us. For the young, those same visions become dreams. These goals, these high ideals we have, these high hopes we have that we work towards through that creativity and energy. What a combination. The experience and the know-how, the endurance, and the creativity and the energy and stick-to-itiveness. Could you imagine? I mean, I think it's already going on quite well. I know it could be even better. It's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. I invite you to stand and pray with me as we close our service today. Father in heaven, thank you for this holy word. Thank you for the examples of real people with real humanity who had real struggles just like us to allow your will into their lives. Thank you for the examples of faith. Thank you for the examples of submission to your will. Thank you for the examples of humility that we have in the Bible. Particularly today we looked at Mary and Elizabeth and certainly your son. May they show up in our lives because more than our petty differences, greater than those is our sense of your love for us and your eternal plan for us. So Lord, unite us as only you can. And may you amaze us with what you will yet do through this school, through this church, through our efforts by your grace to bring more people to that real homecoming, that forever home, that perfect home with you. In Jesus' name, amen.